This is kind of a sequel to my Catholicism video. It does continue the story, but I talk about Christianity in general, which is really a standalone topic, and there's also a short little bit about Scientology in there as well. So, after I was no longer a Catholic, I actually became a little more religious. I did, of course, do many things that people would not see as congruent with being a Christian. I drank a lot, and from a very young age, too. I was also a habitual pot smoker. I didn't see anything wrong with it. So I didn't think God would either. I figured that not harming others is the basis of ethics, and since God has the highest standard of ethics, he would know that. So I figured we had to be on the same page. I read the Bible cover to cover when I was 18. I saw the brutality and the contradictions, but my mind was blind to it. I just couldn't accept it. I even got into the whole end times thing, the rapture and all that nonsense. However, when I was 20, I finally started to accept that what I had read 2 years prior was by far the most horrific, disgusting, depraved, brutal, barbaric, perverted media I had ever experienced. This includes horror movies and real death movies like Faces of Death, death scenes, that sort of thing. Rotten.com, bangedup.com, whatever. I'd seen some sick, twisted shit, but the Bible beat it for sure. That last year that I was a Christian, I was also dabbling in Scientology. I took a very skeptical approach to that, though. I discovered that Dianetics does kind of work, and it's actually quite similar to psychotherapy, albeit a very simplified version that seemed to borrow from hypnosis. However, I couldn't help but notice how they always wanted money from you. They also showed me these movies that were blatant propaganda. It was very much like the propaganda used in World War II. Plus, I read many of their books. It soon became apparent that it was just a cult and L. Ron Hubbard had just made it all up. It was at that time that I realized that most likely all religions were made up. All the questions I had as a kid came flooding back to me. And I went over those questions in my previous video. So you can watch that if you want to know what those were. I also discovered the questionable origins of the various texts that made up the Bible and how it was translated and retranslated and copied by hand over and over again. I thought, why would God inspire people back then to write all that, yet hide his very existence from us today? So at that point, I knew Christianity was wrong, because nobody can know what God wants or anything about him. I was still a theist, but my eyes were finally open to the truth that people just make things up. In the next video, I will go over the next stage of my progression.